All right, Mets fans, with the departure of Pete Alonso, it's time to talk about Pete Alonso's replacement. And we are talking about a name that we've already discussed on the channel a couple of days ago. And we have a brand new report surrounding trade discussions involving the Mets and the Cardinals. Before we fully get into this report from a St. Louis Cardinals beat reporter, make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel, and check out all the previous content down below. A very disappointing winter meetings for the New York Mets, losing out on Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso, and so many question marks remain about the future of this offseason. Where do the Mets go now? And they could be eyeing the trade market on multiple fronts, including first base, because as I mentioned, Mark Vientos and the potential of him being a everyday first baseman in 2026 is not something that David Stearns is going to rely on, especially when he values run prevention, and Ryan Clifford simply is not going to be ready at the beginning of 2026 to make an everyday contribution. So the New York Mets, whether it's free agency or via trade, have to backfill that position externally. And with this tweet from St. Louis Sports Central, it says, with the departure of Pete Alonso, the Cardinals and Mets have had discussions about a Willson Contreras trade, and this comes via MLB.com senior St. Louis Cardinals reporter, John Denton. Now, if you missed the previous video where I discussed the potential Willson Contreras move from the Mets perspective, I will link that video in the description down below so you can go ahead and check out. I had all the statistics and I explained why Willson Contreras could be a fit in the mind of David Stearns, especially with him moving full-time in the very first year of his career to first base last year in 2025, where he held his own, not only with the bat, but also defensively with the glove. And I also discussed the contract parameters surrounding what is left on his deal. Now, that is as such: $18 million for the next season, 2026, $18.5 million for the 2027 season. That is 2 guaranteed years worth $36.5 million. And there's also a third year that is a club option worth $17.5 million. And with his production, especially with the bat, I still think that is a bargain deal. And no, you are not going to get the same numbers that Pete Alonso would have put up at first base, but we have to be under the assumption that the Mets are still eyeing multiple bats to kind of backfill that production that they are now going to miss out with Pete Alonso departing the organization. And I think that this would be a really good move. I really do. I think that this is a solid plan B. It's not going to be the sexy move for a plan B, especially if you are a huge Pete Alonso fan. Like I said, it's been a very sad last few days with this staple of the Mets team, right? This core really being shooken up, and the names that we've come to know and love departing the organization. But it is time to move forward and build a plan to put a competitive roster out there. And I'm sure the Mets are going to make a viable effort in doing so. And Steve Cohen reportedly texted John Heyman saying that he knows the fans' reactions. He understands us all being upset, but that they are still going to go forward in this offseason and put their best foot forward. That remains to be seen of what he really means by that and the caliber of moves that they will be targeting. But like I said, I really like Willson Contreras. The one thing that I will say that will be a hurdle in these negotiations is the Cardinals are in a period where they need pitching. They need young and controllable pitching. And to be honest, the New York Mets and the prospects that they have that are young and controllable and are MLB ready, I don't think that there's any value, right? That is in a one-for-one scenario, in one-for-one sense. And it's not going to be a one-for-one deal. Clearly, there's going to be multiple pieces, maybe even going back and forth. But I will say a trade surrounding Jonah Tong is definitely off limits, I would say, for the caliber of a bat that Willson Contreras is. Even though he's good, he is not worth Jonah Tong, in my humble opinion. I will say that, unless the Mets are getting Willson Contreras plus. And I have my doubts that the Mets would let go of Brandon Sproat in this deal as well. I am sure that the Cardinals understand that Jonah Tong and Nolan McLean will be off limits, especially Nolan McLean, and they will be asking for Brandon Sproat. Is And are there pitchers in this organization that the Mets can sell the Cardinals on to take on instead of those three names? Because we still don't know the direction of what David Stearns is going to take with the rotation as well. That is also a huge question mark, multiple question marks. Now, there are also rumors surrounding the Mets being interested in moving off of David Peterson. I could definitely see that scenario playing out here too, if the Cardinals would be willing to take on a rental who is going into his last arbitration year is David Peterson to offload the money that they owe Contreras. This is going to be really interesting to see how this materializes. But like I said, this is one of the more realistic options to at least get some offensive production value and a solid glove at first base, with Pete Alonso now not being here. So again, I don't really want to go into the actual details of all the statistics. I've already made a video about Willson Contreras. Make sure to go check that out. Again, it'll be in the description down below. I just figured I would update you all that there have been talks, I'm sure, not only with the St. Louis Cardinals, but with other teams. But this is what is being reported: solidified talks between the Mets and the Cardinals surrounding the name Willson Contreras. So keep an eye out on that, and I'll keep you all updated on more Mets trade talks and rumors as they come out. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And as always, let's go Mets.